Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister John Baird said again yesterday that the conflict in the Middle East is not between Israel and the Palestinians, but rather between Israel and Hamas. Joining us now to flesh that out is Grant Rumley, a research analyst at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, a think tank based in Washington that focuses on national security and foreign policy. Mr. Rumley, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Sir, to what degree does Hamas represent the true wants and needs of the people of Gaza? Is Hamas indeed the legitimate voice of Gaza?
Well, since 2007, when there was a split between Fatah and Hamas, Hamas has established its own government within Gaza, parallel to the Palestinian Authority, that conducts its own operations and its own bureaucratic services. Hamas, in this capacity, is, in essence, a terrorist organization as well as a government entity. And the polls we have, the most recent polls conducted before this operation, show that about 73% of Palestinians in Gaza support a ceasefire with Israel. And in addition to that, about 60% of them support President Mahmoud Abbas's position of recognition of Israel. So there is a disparity and there is a discrepancy between what the people in Gaza want and what Hamas is actually doing.
Yeah. Not to be facetious, sir, but do you have a lot of confidence in these poll numbers?
Right. Polling in Gaza and the West Bank can be perilous at best at times, and it has been known to fluctuate. But these are trends that we've monitored for a while, and these are trends that show that a majority of Palestinians in Gaza are more concerned about health, access to education services, employment, economic factors, than actually carrying out attacks on Israel.
So if Hamas is not indeed the legitimate, the moral authority of Gaza, how is it they stay in power?
Well, in part by keeping everybody else who would challenge them down. Another part is that they've consolidated enough control and paid off enough of their employees so that they are able to maintain some type of rigid access and control structure within Gaza. But of course, these are all things that have led Fatah and Hamas to the reconciliation table. People have said that Hamas is weaker in recent years. The closures with Egypt, the downfall of Morsi have hurt them. They've enjoyed less regional support. They are in a weaker position as of this past reconciliation agreement, and this recent attack is anything but beneficial for them.
Why, when it appears as if they're poised to make some measure of progress with the Palestinians living in the West Bank, the new unity government, the agreement back in June, why do they suddenly unleash all these rockets on Israel?
Well, first off, the new unity government isn't exactly a government. It's a coalition body of about 15 to 16 ministers who are charged with preparing for elections in 6 months, something that both sides have said they want. But this government, which Palestinian leaders call a government of technocrats, is composed of mostly leading Palestinian officials and prominent Palestinians who claim to have no party affiliation. But the actual details of these members of this coalition body were proposed by Hamas and Fatah, and some of them, at least 3 or 4, have long-standing ties to Hamas.
Mr. Rumley, we're rapidly running out of time, sir. If I could ask you, how do you see Endgame in this most recent violence between the two sides?
Well, I think a ceasefire is in the best interest of both sides, and I look to tomorrow for intense negotiations to take place. As we heard earlier, Hamas is weary of Egypt taking the charge of negotiations. I would look to Turkey and possibly Qatar to stand in and pull some sway with Hamas and hopefully enact a more lasting ceasefire.
Grant Rumley is a research analyst at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Mr. Rumley, pleasure speaking with you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.